Today we're going to be going over 3 different concepts that we made for Red Bull, from ideation to making the thumbnail, talk about color theory, making things look realistic, and all that kind of stuff. If this is your first time on the channel, my name's Damian. I am a thumbnail designer, mostly known for working with 100 Thieves. I've also worked with hundreds of different creators like Red Bull, YMH Studios. I also do a lot of ideation for different creators as well, where I come up with unique ideas and coming up with cool thumbnail concepts that we think are gonna hit like 10 million view banger videos. I just finished talking at VidCon about a month ago, and if you guys wanna see me talk about thumbnails and break it down, I should be at Vid Summit this coming month. So let's jump into those 3 concepts on how we made a good thumbnail for Red Bull's main channel. All right, so Red Bull basically approached us, I can't remember how long ago, and they wanted us to redesign a thumbnail for a video that was underperforming. It's this video right here. It's called F1 Drivers Race Down the World's Busiest Street. So let me go ahead and show you what the thumbnail was before. So I have the thumbnail pulled up. The quality is really low, but this is what the thumbnail was before. You basically have all these big faces left and right, and in the background it's just a blurred street with a Red Bull car. It's super busy. They don't like how it's executed. It kind of gets the message across, but it feels like the person that was designing it was just trying to get like a bunch of faces in there and trying to hope that this gets like more clicks, and that obviously didn't work. So we kind of came up with 3 different concepts, and I'll go ahead and show you right now which concepts those are, how we executed them, and why we did those things. So before that, I've got this like really crappy screenshot and like super bad mock-ups that we made. They just look horrendous. And basically what we did is we tried to come up with a way to show the Red Bull car within the busy street, right? And also keeping like those thumbnail colors that you want in there. They really reference Ryan Trahan a lot. So we tried to keep that blue element that he was using a lot during this time frame. Right here in this concept, you can see blue sky at the top, Red Bull car in the middle, and just like the busy street all around. There's kind of like these quick little lines for these towers on the sides. And people always say like concepts need to look like super high quality. They do not. Like, this is for internal use. This is just to get the message across. So it really doesn't matter that much, as long as the final thumbnail obviously looks great. And then we also opted in with a version where we added someone's face in on the side. I think it was Max Verstappen, so that's who we're adding in. So this was the first concept, and then I'll go ahead and show you that completed version right now. So this is the completed thumbnail. Now, something to keep in mind is when you work just with brands like this, a lot of times you have very limited assets. And so what that basically means is that you can't always get the exact angle that you want to, so you have to kind of do your best to work with what they have. So this is, our shot was supposed to be more aerial view, where you could kind of see the city, all the people, and the car in the middle. But that was actually kind of hard to get the Red Bull logo unless it was on top of the roof, and we didn't have those shots. So we went ahead and went for a side shot where we could still fit the blue sky, the buildings, and the people. So kind of breaking this down, the thought process behind it is we need to get across the busiest street, and we need to get across that the car is racing in it. So we had another concept where you could fit the cars in it, but because due to just lack of images, we couldn't execute it properly. So we went with this, where we have the Red Bull car in the center of the street, and then you have all the people walking around in this super busy street. If you look at the buildings, you can see that they're obviously in a foreign country, and you can see that you have the blue sky as well. So the last option that we added to this, where we just added Max's face off to the right side and kind of compressed everything down to the left. And then a few things to kind of keep in mind is there's a reason why the blue sky and the car stand out so much. And if you haven't noticed, everything is kind of desaturated right now. The buildings are basically gray. There's like a few signs that kind of show their colors, and then a few people on the street that have those colors. But the main things that have those bright colors are just Max and the busy street. So going back to the full shot, it's this one right here. Once again, realism is super important for them. Majority of their thumbnails is just like, let's use as many real assets as possible and blend them in together, just shooting for that realism, which is what a lot of people are doing now. And then on top of that, we just had to, once again, really just abide with the images that they sent us. So all of these are basically made with that sense and direction. All right, we're gonna jump into the next one. We just went over the first concept, and this next one is more of a racing, super racing oriented, and getting that city busy street in as well. Once again, you got to remember that we have those limited assets. So a lot of the assets that we use in one thumbnail, you'll probably see in this one. For example, it's the same car, but for this one is my favorite in my opinion, but the reason I think we didn't go for it was simply because the colors weren't as bright and it's a little busy, similar to what they currently have, but it does get the message across really well. So with this one, the idea was we want to show the race plus the busy street as best as possible. So we have the two cars kind of lined up side by side, like pulling one back a little bit, waiting on that line before the race starts. And in the background, it's almost like you have a huge crowd of people. That's basically the whole idea for it. So once again, it's combining those elements, but instead of putting the car in the crowded street, we put both of them out there on the street before the race. And then with this one, you have the buildings in the background. We did have a version where there was like a split between the buildings where you could kind of see the blue sky, but it didn't really look that realistic. So we went ahead and just opted for this route. And so yeah, once again, breaking it down, we have like that brand recognition at the beginning, the Red Bull logo on the left-hand side, the busy street, and the realism when using those photos. Now, once again, there are some images that we were able to use that were not from their shot list, but it was very rare. So majority of them is just from different shots that they gave us. Once again, I kind of want to show you where the inspo kind of came for this thumbnail. Pretty straightforward. We basically just went on YouTube, which is where you want to go when you're finding things that have high views, and we just looked up car race, and we basically found these examples where you can see like this one, Hellcat versus the Corvette, 20 million views 4 years ago. They're kind of lined up there about a race, and majority of racing videos is that lined up car. And then this was also before A/B testing, I believe. So now that A/B testing is out, it could be cool to kind of see like which one would perform best. But as you kind of scroll through these, you can see that those lined up vehicles tend to perform really well when it comes to any type of race. So then world's busiest street, this first thumbnail is more focused on the busy crowd. And so if you look up like world's busiest street, you'll be able to find these thumbnails that just look crazy with the amount of people. They are a bit crowded if you're trying to fit the car in, which is why we wanted that aerial view shot, but we did the best we could with the shots that we had. And so going through these, you can see a lot of those shots is just like people walking down the street. Aerial view is like a very big thing, and just seeing all those people walking by left and right. So that's what we tried to kind of mix into that. Okay, and then for this last option, we went for something very simple, just a car racing through the street, kind of based off what they already had, but it was also based off a lot of other videos on their channel where they had just the car racing through in the blurred background. And then just the point of this one was like, let's remove just like the excess stuff. Let's see how well the car driving through a busy street or just like a city does as well. So that was kind of like the last option where we're kind of hitting a bunch of different points. This one also combos well with adding the face on the side, so there's not as many things on the thumbnail. Basically, after we made all three of these options, the one that we ended up going with was this one right here, the world's busiest street, the one where we focused on the car and the people around the street. We felt like this one got the idea across the best. It was the most appealing to the eye as well, because that's something they really care about. You can see just how simple all of their thumbnails are, where it just feels like a real shot. And then this was another redesign we did as well, hardest gaming tags, so we can do another video and go over that one as well. This is just like right here, you could kind of see the beginning of like that simplified style of just like their channel, just straightforward, very realistic. That's kind of like what YouTube is kind of moving towards right now in terms of thumbnails. And that's the breakdown on how we came up with those three concepts for them and recreated their thumbnail and tried to elevate it as best as we could while increasing those views.
One thing that you mentioned was that YouTube is heading towards more realistic looking thumbnails. And when you compare certain thumbnails versus realism versus like more exaggerated look, what are some key elements to make those thumbnails look realistic? Because as you can see, the Red Bull thumbnail, it looks pretty realistic. Like elements there, everything blends in well, everything looks like one single shot.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like number one, of course, is try to send as many real assets as possible. Like if you're laying down in bed, like actually lay down in bed, have the pizza on the bed if there's pizza in your thumbnail, whatever it is, like make sure all the elements are in there at the beginning, and then that way we can blend it in as easy as possible. The things that will make it look real, Mr. Beast gets like his hyper like realism thumbnails because they do a lot of editing on the faces, so you avoid that kind of stuff. Try to keep everything as raw as possible, just kind of color correct and color grade a little bit. And then after that, just kind of like focusing on making sure that the shadows on the thumbnail look real, right? And then as well as just like the lighting in the room and then color correction. So it's like, of course, this is all like a designer's point of view on how to make it look realistic. That's what's going to help you the most in making sure it does look realistic. Yeah.
The attention to detail, making sure that the shadows and adding proper lighting, it enhances the feel to the realism of the thumbnail.
Exactly. It just blends together better. And not to say that like the Mr. Beast thumbnail doesn't blend together well, it does, but there's just extra things done on top that is altering every piece in there to be like super brushed or just look like they say hyper realistic or like Photoshop. So just kind of like avoiding those things.
It gives a very exaggerated feel.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to mention about these thumbnails? Any part that you felt was like one of your favorite things to work on as far as these thumbnails? Of the three, which one do you felt was like your favorite, or if you had a favorite?
Design wise, I like this one the most. And then going over, felt like this one may have worked the best, maybe with some other tweaks. And then my least favorite was this one. I just felt like it was pretty basic, and then it gets the idea across, and it's like it's a good third option, but it just wasn't the best as others. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to perform better, right? It's just like, that's just my opinion. So at the end of the day, it could perform better.
And for the people that are just trying to figure out what makes a good thumbnail, what are some key elements that they should keep in mind when actually designing a thumbnail in the sense of like realism? Because one thing that you mentioned, like this one is a little bit more simpler, but it can still work as a thumbnail. What are some key elements that they should keep in mind?
I guess to kind of simplify it, I think my favorite things are creating that subtle conflict within the thumbnail. So the best example that I always go to is if you look at Mr. Beast thumbnails, almost all of these have subtle conflict, and what that means is like there's kind of like tension within the thumbnail, or there's two things that kind of clash. So looking at the first one, they're all trapped inside the box, and you can see in the facial expression how like scared they are. The next one, you have the before and after. So the left side, like all the houses, they don't look that great, right? They're like kind of torn down, and then before and after they look way better. So that's kind of like where it clashes. And then you have the obstacle course, he's about to fall off the thing. And then there is the survival in the wilderness. He's obviously hanging on for his life. He's about to fall down and the bear's gonna eat him. So just trying to find a way where you can create that conflict within the thumbnail or even the title. That's probably like my favorite thing, and I always like try to do that when I can. Of course, sometimes it's not possible. Or on top of that, it's just having a wow factor, having an item on the thumbnail that's just so crazy that someone needs to click on it. There's the yacht on this one. It's just a massive gold yacht. Just like a wow factor for the thumbnail, and that can help a ton.
That's going to be the end of this video. Let us know if there's any specific thing that you want us to break down. Any last words, Damian?
We have free backgrounds for thumbnails. I'll probably just link below. Go download them. And we have other packs you can download too, where you can get like access to our Photoshop files and then learn how to do things better.
Amazing. We'll see you guys next time.